the number one thing that consistently comes up over and over and over at Teacher Talk is, should teachers wear body cams? And so I'm going to turn that over to whoever thinks they have the right answer for that tonight.
I'm on the fence. I would say there are circumstances that I definitely think it would have been beneficial to have a body cam. But then there are other circumstances where, little Johnny doesn't ever do anything wrong, and the family may not like what I say when I correct them. Even if my correction is correct and respectful, they may not be happy with how I reprimand or speak to their little Johnny.
What do you think, Doc?
About body cams, but I'm not opposed to classroom cameras. Again, I've been through it in another county where it was actually a parent had to request it. This was a special needs classroom, so it was a little bit different because some of the kiddos in there had limited communication. So the parents just wanted kind of that peace of mind of knowing that if they needed to check on something, it was there. But just living the life for the last almost 30 years, I just think that there's pros and cons, but sometimes it is great. Just like Carol was saying, when you can say, kind of, here's the proof, here's what goes on.
So what do you think the implications would be if teachers had body cams or if there were video cameras in all the classrooms? I got this thing today. It just popped up. It's like everybody knows we're going to talk about body cams tonight. So I keep getting this stuff, and it says this right here. It says, should teachers wear body cams like police so parents can see their children's behavior in class? Would that be the implication? If we had body cams and cameras in all the classrooms, would the parents just suddenly be like, oh, I didn't know my kid acted like that? So tell me what you think.
No, I don't think we're ever going to get them to admit, well, there's a certain portion of the population will say that, denial's not a river in Egypt. It is just like their forte. So no, I don't think it would be that. My biggest thing is I don't care about popular opinion. I care that when they threaten to sue, because then I'm able to have concrete proof that a hopefully unbiased judge can see and say, come on, ma'am. Or sir.
Yeah. What do you think, Carol?
I think that, well, I know of a certain incidents. What were you say?
Are parents finally going to be enlightened about their
children? Oh
yeah,
absolutely not. Unfortunately, the ones that see where their child does wrong are not the ones that we need to worry about the body cam footage or the classroom footage for. I mean, I would have, the way my classroom is run, I don't have any problem. Put a camera in there. It's not going to bother me. I'm not going to do anything different than I would if there wasn't a camera in there. However, how parents feel about what their child is doing may be different than how I feel about how their child is behaving. So
I would agree with that. I thought that the pandemic settled the score forever, that parents finally figured out how it was to be with their kids all day long and they wanted their kids to go back to school. But I'm not
that
so
didn't
sure
last very long.
That didn't last very long at all, did it? So I think about this. Should teachers wear body cams like the police so that their parents can see what their kids are doing at school? And I got to be honest with you, I don't think it's going to matter. And here's the reason why is I've had the luxury of sitting in with meetings and having to show campus video of things that happen on a campus and parents watch their kids. And I have learned that there's just some parents that will come up with 500 different reasons as to why whatever I see their kid doing and what they see their kid doing, that's not what actually happened. And I don't know if you guys
even though the camera says so, even though the video shows it,
even though the video says so. And I have this phrase, because I have this idea. I'm like, this would be like an episode of The Dumbest Criminals, right? These guys go in, they rob a bank or they steal an ATM. They're clearly on video. They smile at the camera. And then whenever they get to court, they're like, bro, it ain't me. That ain't me. I didn't do that. That was somebody else. I was with my girl the other night. That wasn't me. That's exactly what I think would happen if we wore body cams. Now, to Doc's point, I think that it's an extraordinarily good idea to have them for the case of a lawsuit where a judge may see things differently. So one of the things that's happening in education is the idea of social promotion. And I call that the social promotion trap. Are we hurting students by passing them along, even if they're not ready to be passed? What do you guys think? What's everybody think?
I struggle with a no-fail policy when you just push students along. But I also understand that you can't have a 30-year-old in 10th grade. So somehow we have to find the balance where the child is getting, or the student is getting, an education and being held accountable for being in school, but we shouldn't just push them along.
Well, agreed. And I think one of the biggest things with the whole pushing along, as with everything, it comes down to numbers, right? Our admins want to make sure our grad rates look good, and we want to make sure our suspension rates aren't that high. And so there's a lot of numbers involved, which again then turns into politics, which bleh. But yeah, so it's pretty messy, but I completely agree. You can't have that 16-year-old sixth grader, even though some of us may or may not have had something very close to that. And because then there's a whole host of things that need to be looked at and dealt with. So it's super tricky in traditional school setup right now. So I think there has to be some super outside of the box thinking. And this isn't like shove them in one classroom and isolate. It's truly thinking outside the box and coming up with something different.
So what do you guys think about the 50% minimum grade policy?
I agree with it. And the reason I agree with it is when you look at a grading scale, from an F, you have 59 points of failure and you only have 41 points of passing.
So that's a real good point. Now, I took the other side of that stand, and I say that when you remove the floor of a 0, then you also remove the ceiling of achievement. And it's not that I think that we should be destroying kids' academic careers, but at the end of the day, they're the one that destroyed it. And so from that perspective, if I had a kid that was working really hard and just couldn't get the work, or just didn't know how to do the work, or couldn't come up with the grade, I'm going to find a way to get that kid across the finish line. Right. But the guy or the girl that comes to school every single day, refuses to work, disrupts the class, is in the office all the time, is out in the hallway on their phone, and they don't do any work, I have no sympathy for the 50 policy. Am I just being too hard?
No, I see where you're coming from that. Go ahead, Lisa.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Someone go ahead. So I just think it comes down again to consequences. I know we're going to get into that in a few minutes, so I don't want to jump the gun. But I think each case we kind of have to look at, we do have some serious issues right now with dysregulation, with attention. And I'm not going to say everybody's ADHD, because they're not. They're training their brains and their nervous systems not to focus, which that's my soapbox for another day. For the kiddo that, like you said, is trying, and we need to, one size doesn't fit all, right? So Agreed. I've got the kid that is a movement kid, and he's constantly doing whatever. I need to kind of give him some strategies that might look a little different than everybody else, but it can help him at least focus to get work done. It's super individualized, and I know not every kid can be individualized, especially when you have 30-something. But I agree. I don't know. I just saw somebody said, if the threat of retention was real, they would pull things together. And that's the other side, which is exactly where I was going, of this whole push them through. I actually had one student one time say, I don't need to work during the year. I come during summer school. I spend 4 weeks here, and I'm out and I pass. So, I mean, they are figuring out the system.
Yep. I think So I think that there are some kids that the threat of failure, that it does not even register to them that that's a problem. So it doesn't matter if they have a 0 or a 50, right? Now, I'm not a proponent of the 50 minimum policy per se, all right? But I'm not a proponent of there being 17 and 18-year-old kids in a middle school either. And that is a situation that I dealt with personally years ago. I could not believe it. I was, the school that I was at, I showed up and there's a kid 17 years old in the 7th grade. And that's ridiculous. All right. And I got to tell you, I don't think that he should have been promoted either. Well, what I think has to happen is there has to be a way to have hard conversations with parents, even with parents of students that have IEPs, and say, look, you are obviously not going to advance. You haven't done a single thing to make it out of the 7th grade. You got to go somewhere else.
I think what you just said with the you haven't done anything is where I agree with you on the fact that the 50 grading scale isn't effective. My agreement with the effective grading practices with 50s is when the kid is trying, when the kid is actually putting forth effort, and it's not I refuse to do it because I can come do it later in a fraction of the time.
Yeah, I would concede that if I have a student that's working hard, that's turning in work, that's showing up every day, that's not causing troubles, I will concede I'm going to find a way to get that student across the finish line. I think my problem is most students who are retained, they're not retained necessarily because they were working really hard, at least not in 2026. You're retained because you haven't done anything. So check out this question. All right. We're answering all the questions that have been sent in, not all the questions, but as many as we possibly can that have been sent in to Teacher Talk. And we want to talk about gaslighting and liability. Why are teachers being blamed for everything that goes on in the school or all the problems when it's really the teachers who are the ones that are getting hurt? Doc, take it away.
You know my feelings about this. When did it become okay for teachers, even the consideration of teachers getting hurt at school or at their job? And it's become okay. It's almost for a while there, at least for me, it was like a badge of honor. We would compare our scars and our war wounds and what had happened. And it is extremely frustrating.
I don't think that there should ever be a time, even in, on the special ed side. And I know that's a whole different beast, but I don't think that there should ever be a time where hitting a teacher is acceptable. Am I off track on that? I mean, we deal with that at our school. I mean,
I agree with, teachers should never be in the line of fire to be hit or hurt. However, students should be protected. So if there's something that can be done to protect yourself as the adult, but also protect the child, it is our responsibility to protect the student. No, I'm not going to get in the middle of a fight and break up a fight. You can't help if a student is combative, but at the same point, there are ways to protect yourself while also helping the child to remain safe.
Mm-hmm. So for the record, I have had to break up I don't know how many fights, all right, in my long education career. And to say that I have been beat up a time or two is an understatement. And, that should not happen. But the fact of the matter is, as Carol said, when students are going at it, if that is the case, I don't think that we have the ability to just stand idly by. And I know that that's going to go wildly different in different directions. But I'm wondering if the fear of lawsuits and school ratings has created a system where student behavior is excused and teacher safety is sometimes minimized. What do you think about that, Carol?
With that, my husband is a former SRO, and, we've had many conversations as far as, regarding putting yourself in the position of being injured, but at the same point, making sure students are safe. And there is a time and a place to know where you have to do your job. And it's not just when students are getting into a fight. It's any time that there are circumstances that could be harmful, but you can't just shrug your shoulders and, turn around and walk away and say, well, that kid's having a meltdown and I can't do anything about it. Well, there may be something that you can do without being in the line of them swinging or, kicking. If, it just is kind of a thing where you have to know how to handle things and be willing to do it.
So do you think that it's just easy to blame teachers? I mean, because clearly it must be the teacher that set the kid off, or it must be the teacher that didn't do this right, or the teacher must have said something that was just, isn't it just easier to blame the teacher than to address the root cause of the problem?
And again, that goes back to partnerships and the fact that it is no longer a partnership. It's us versus them. And that's when this all comes together of, school, that is teacher and staff, and I'm not, doing anything with that. Well, no, it's all of us working together in order to better the child, and that's what I used to tell parents all the time. They're only with us 6 hours or 6.5, and then they go home for all the other time. I can only control what goes on here. So it's funny because the chat's kind of blowing up. So they have a student who attacks so many kids, adults, and this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. I'm talking about students who run rampant and are taking out people. There's a situation right now that I know of somewhere else that a student has beaten people to the point that there's workman's comp claims. People have been 4 or 5 have been sent to the doctor, and everybody, is afraid. And we bring up FAPE, free and appropriate education. But let's talk about the appropriateness of this kid who is sometimes taller than some of the teachers, beating the living tar out of them. So that really ruffles my feathers and gets me going, because when did it become okay? It's not okay if you act that way on a flight. They kick you off. It's not okay if you act like that in a hospital. They've got security like there's no tomorrow. They take you out.
That's right.
Like, why is it okay at a school?
That's right.
And I need somebody higher up to answer that.
So does that take us back to question number 1? And we need to have body cams and cameras in all of our classrooms so that parents can finally see how their kids behave at school?
No, because it's still not going to be their kid, and it's still not going to be, the contributing factor isn't going to change.
That's exactly right.
But does it go back to we're not holding them accountable, and we are not, it goes back to all of our other questions that we've answered so far. It all ties together.
It sure does. So, you made an interesting point right there, is because I have had the privilege of sitting with thousands of parents, as many of you have, but I've sat with them in a disciplined context. And in that context, I have watched parents that were frustrated. They were at their wits' end, and they would be like, you know what? We're having these same problems at home. I can't get my little Johnny or my little Susie. They don't pay any attention to me. They won't listen to me. But as surely as I'm sitting here, when I call them about their kids' behavior, they know without any facts whatsoever that it couldn't have been their kid's fault. And the very first thing they want to know, I want to see it on video. I want to see it on video. It's like if it wasn't on video, it didn't happen, right? So maybe we do need body cams, or maybe we do need cameras in all the classrooms. Is self-care the system's way of avoiding fixing an impossible workload? And what I mean is, do our districts and our admin and our politicians just say, hey, you need to practice self-care so that you can stay in this for a long time? And that's their way of saying, we're never going to change the workload that you have. Am I onto something there, or is our viewers onto something? Because that's where it came from.
I think okay, I'm going to ride a fence here. So yes, I think self-care has become maybe a little cliche in society right now, as far as like a buzzword or a term. but I think it's super, super important. So I'm okay with it being brought up a lot, especially if it's through admin. I hope that admin understands the importance of teachers taking care of themselves and also providing opportunities for them to take care of themselves. But yes, I think it can also be weaponized against us in the sense of, well, you seem pretty stressed out. Are you taking care of yourself? You got to make sure you're, with the self-care. And it's like,
So Carol, one of the things that I'm convinced of is I'm convinced that education is built upon the prerequisite that teachers are going to work unpaid overtime. And so when teachers are expected to sacrifice their nights or sacrifice their weekends, even in some cases sacrifice their family to be considered a good teacher, is that dedication or is that exploitation? Which one is it?
I mean, that's a tough question because for many, many years, I was that teacher that things at home were done, things were taken home, and I didn't worry about what I wasn't getting because of it. However, when I realized the toll that it took on my family and I realized what I was missing out on because of the amount of load that I was taking home with me and that I didn't have to do that. I realized that there were things I could change in my school day and be able to be a little bit more productive and not have as much to take home. And then things still happened. I'm still a dedicated teacher. I'm still a good teacher, but I very rarely bring anything home. And it did take a while to get to that point, but it took some damage to get to that point.
So I can't help this right here, but I want to put this up on the screen.
Yes.
Final Countdown says, I had an admin tell me that there aren't enough hours in the contract to do all the requirements just at school. Okay, then how will I have time to take care of myself? Okay, that's why I asked the question, is this dedication or is it exploitation? Because I don't know of a teacher or an admin one that doesn't know that you can't do all your work in your contract hours. Doc, you had your hand up.
Oh, because this is just, okay. So if you keep doing outside of your contract hours, they will keep giving. It's that simple, guys. It's that simple.
Boundaries.
Yes. Boundaries.
Yep.
So about 10, 12 years ago, I was told, I watched an office absolutely explode because a certain requirement couldn't be done. So the guidance counselors were freaking out. Admin was freaking out. Everybody was running around like chickens with their heads cut off. Not me, because no, it's not mine. And I looked right at admin and I said, the longer you keep getting this done, right, so that you can check your box, the longer district is going to look at you and just say, do it. They're never going to give you additional support. They're never going to give you any kind of help. They're just going to insist that you keep doing it because you do keep doing it. So I go back to just, again, establishing boundaries, understanding that you are not required to do that. And if it comes down to it, that's when you have to get maybe other people involved.
This has been a great conversation. I've enjoyed it. I hope that our community has enjoyed it, and we hope that it's been helpful for you. There are all kinds of things. Resources, again, down in the description box or the QR codes that we've put up on the screen. I want to encourage you to go get those. Reach out to Carol and reach out to Lisa and become a part of their communities as well. We're here to support you. But I wonder, before we go, Carol, if you had the opportunity, because the entire United States is actually watching this podcast right now. And so if you had the opportunity to speak to every teacher of the entire United States, which you do, what would you say?
Do I get to say my normal thing?
You can say whatever you want.
Don't give up. Your kids need you. And schedule your colonoscopy if you're 45 years or older, because it could save your life. It saved mine.
That's right. Lisa, what would you say?
Just the same thing, except not the colonoscopy, but yes, I agree.
But they need to!
I just want to encourage everybody to understand that they don't need to stay where they are. Like, you don't need to stay stuck. If you feel stuck right now, you don't need to stay there. There's options,
Right.
there's choices, and I'm not saying physically moving, but
That's right.
I'm talking about a mental shift.
Mindset.
Let's look at what's going on, right? And you have a whole team here that is super willing to provide resources and encouragement.
Mhm.
But if you're ready to do something differently, let us know and we're here to help.
That's right. Listen, here's what I would say. First, go home. When the contract is up, go home. Because your family needs you. You
100%.
need to be able to rest. Number two, if you have days to take them every once in a while. And I'm guilty. I have like 600 hours of time off.
For sure.
But take them. Number three, spend time with the people that you love and the people that love you. And here's the reason why, is because they won't give you a pink slip, but your employer will. And most of all, what I really want you to do, and I think YouTube wants you to do this, is there's a couple of videos right up here that goes a little bit more in depth with some of the things that we've been talking about. I want you to watch those, but I also want you to stay strong and keep teaching.